It's showtime! Welcome to another episode of Ahead of the Curve. Thank you guys so much for tuning in again today. I have my guest Yannicka Mikkelsen with me today, and we are going to be talking about all kinds of different stuff VR related, diving in to some of the things that she's done and some of the technologies that she's worked on. And welcome to the show, Yannicka.
Thank you. At least you got my name kind of right.
Yeah, I kind of.
You know, ordering and coffee.
All over the place with that at first. So do you like my headset? Do you like my prop?
I approve. I do not have one myself here because I'm social distancing in a different country. What I do have is one of these, which is kind of the same thing, and we can get into that in a bit.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it looks really interesting. I'm intrigued to find out and learn more. It suits you. So Yannicka, tell me, how did you get started in all of this? Like, how did you get into VR, and what really brought you into the space?
Oh gosh, I feel like I probably should have talked to a psychologist about this, because it is sort of like this bad trip, and I'm being quite serious actually, because it's by total mistake, and I think most people get into it by total mistake. The most recent history is that I was a stereographer before 3D was a thing, like before it was popular, and we were a crowd of or a team of sort of international people who'd only met on like the IRC chat groups.
Oh yeah, IRC, yeah, I remember that.
And we used to make 3D pictures, and eventually that became 3D movies, and then Avatar came out, and then everything had to be 3D. I mean, we loved Avatar. We'd never seen 3D in the cinema, at least nothing digital, at least nothing that was like non-anaglyph, if you see what I mean, the red and green glasses. So that was pretty life-changing. The reason why I got into 3D was I was in an accident, and I was in a wheelchair for a while. I couldn't go to school. So the reason why I got into 3D was that my teacher said, okay, since you can't go to school, just study something you're interested in. So of course I picked space, being me. I picked a rocket mission. I picked the STS-99, which was a rocket mission at that time. You know, they're going to fly around the world and map it in 3D. I was like, oh, that's really cool. How does that work? What is 3D? And they were like using the Canadarm and bouncing sort of radio waves down on the Earth, and then receiving it and creating this topographical 3D map of the Earth. So started setting up these IRC chat groups around the world with other nerdy teenagers like myself, and we were like trying to figure it out, and what are they doing, and how are they creating it, and we could also chat with the engineers at NASA. It was really cool. It was before NASA actually had a website. So
you guys were chatting with them via IRC?
Yeah, with the engineers on the ground, not the shuttle itself. And through that, we sort of started learning what 3D was and how to make 3D imagery. And then we started playing around with that and seeing how we could take 3D pictures of ourselves and others. And at that time, we didn't realize that 3D was an old thing that they had in the Victorian times. So we thought it was this newfound thing. I don't think we even realized there was 3D movies made in the 20s and the 40s and 50s, for instance. So
I didn't even know it went back that far.
Oh yeah, no, I love 3D history. So the first 3D movie was made. It's called The Power of Love, and it was made in 1924. That's how much of a nerd I am. I don't even look that up. So actually, the Lumiere brothers wanted to make their movie in 3D. You know, the train arrives at the station. And I actually got so into it that for my dissertation, I was trying to find the correspondence letters to prove that it was actual fact that they tried to make this movie into 3D. And they found those correspondence letters. There's actually a book published with the letters between Edison and the Lumiere brothers.
Wow, that's actually really cool.
Yeah. So how do I get from 3D to VR? So I was working for Paramount Pictures, and I was working in Germany, so the Paramount Overseas branch. And we were shooting Hollywood features, and I loved it, and it was fun. But I could see the 3D curve coming to a crash. And I was like, okay, what I really want to do is I want to be a cinematographer. I was jealous of the cinematographer. I saw the creative stuff he was doing, and I was like, I want to do that. I want to be able to do that. So long story short, I applied at the cinematography school in England at the National Film and Television School and got accepted. Graduated, skip that story. Graduated. Next day, I got a phone call from a producer who I'd actually gone to him for about 6 years trying to get a job with him. He was a producer for David Attenborough, and David Attenborough was doing wildlife and 3D documentaries. And I wanted that job. That was my dream job. I could be active, could scuba dive, I could run around the world and be a 3D cinematographer.
Yeah, I mean, what's not to like about all of that?
Exactly. Dream job, huh? So he called me actually and said, we need you on a 3D documentary. Are you available to go to Costa Rica next week? Send us your passport. We need it within 20 minutes. And I was like, sweet. But then I'm in. But when I got to the office and the contract was signed, I realized that he didn't know what 360 was, and it was actually a 360 documentary, not a 3D documentary. And none of us knew what VR was.
Wow, that's pretty crazy.
And that's how that journey started into VR. So that's 5 years ago. I bought the first dev kit for, remember Lucky with the VR head kits there, Oculus head kits.
Yep.
Yeah. So got
that's what I got on my head actually.
Oh, that's a dev too.
Well, it's an Oculus. This is a Rift.
Yeah.
Or sorry, a Quest. I've got a Rift in the other room. I get them confused all the time. They look the same.
And that's how my VR journey started. And we were at the point where there was nothing. There was a VR headset, but there was no cameras for VR. There was no theory. Nobody knew what they were doing. And then in addition to that, we had to shoot a underwater wildlife documentary.
For VR.
For VR. Yeah, in a remote location in the middle of the Pacific where obviously there is no internet, and you rely upon internet to make these movies quite often. And having teams of scuba divers and submarines and also helicopters to film these animals in 360.
So what did you do to solve that problem? I mean, that seems like a pretty severe problem.
So, I mean, these are pretty big operations. I mean, it cost a lot to send one of those research yachts out. This was with, they're now called Ocean X. Back then they were called Alusha. You might have heard of them. It's an amazing research yacht for underwater wildlife. And they want to be like, like the Calypso, like Jacques Cousteau and his boat Calypso. And they have 2 yachts, 2 helicopters, 2 submarines, 24 dive tenders, a 3D cinema, a lab for macro work, a video village. They have absolutely everything for film production. But because they're so expensive to deploy, there's multiple operations happening at the same time, multiple TV shows or films being shot. And our dilemma was, well, how do we shoot 360 when we have to show everything? And we were all sort of in this traditional thought of frame the animal in front of the camera and don't show any of the people in shot. You want to show the animal by itself in its environment.
Not really the case when you're shooting something for VR.
No, and 7 dive crews operating out of the same boat. Can you imagine the traffic? I mean, people are shouting orders at each other. It's not serenity. It's full on military operation. So it was sort of navigating that traffic and seeing where we could dive in between all the other operations. Educating the crew that we can't, share content. If you can see the camera can see you, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't help to walk 1 step to the left and ask if you're still in frame, because you are. Everything on the camera is still in frame. And we worked with some incredible scuba divers. Do you know what? I want to give a shout out to Steve Hudson, which is an amazing scuba diver, camera operator. And I also worked with someone who was an absolute idol of mine. And I was so nervous to approach him. And then I realized that he was going to sort of camera operate for us. I hardly dare speak to him because
because you were just so nervous.
Yeah, and Didier, his name was Didier Noirot, and he was a camera assistant for Jacques Cousteau.
Oh, wow.
And watching him and his wife is a surgeon, actually, but she scuba dives and she operates a light, and watching the two of them communicate underwater is like watching a ballet performance. They're amazing, absolutely amazing. You'll see these images of humpback whales with these big arms, and then you see a tiny human in the picture that just a fraction of the size of the whale, and that's her scuba diving. She can hold her breath up to, I think, 4.5 or 5 minutes.
I thought those types of people did not exist. I thought it was just a fantasy. It's fictitious.
No, and I think she's in her 60s, approaching 70.
That's incredibly impressive.
Life goals right there.
Yeah, no kidding. If only we could all reach those goals when we're at that age.
Exactly. But so bringing it back to the VR, you scuba dive with this sort of a ball, I guess, and then each camera pointing in different direction has a cue, sort of thing. And
sorry, Jake just put mermaid status. Mermaid status, yeah, indeed.
I didn't see them. That's fine. So you're underwater and this thing is sort of glittering in the sunlight, and you tend to want to be, if the water isn't that clear, you want to tend to be where the light is somewhere between, I'm going to do meters because I can't do feet in my head, but somewhere between 10 and 20 meters, where the light can still reach the camera. And the problem when you have this glistening ball that you're swimming with is a massive piece of bait for sharks.
Yeah, of course, it's shiny. Shiny on all sides.
Yeah. So the sharks keep coming up to it and wanting to, have a little nibble. Which isn't great for two reasons. Well, one is the most obvious, is that you're down there with this glistening piece of bait that you're holding in front of you.
Swim faster! I could just see.
And the other reason is that when you're shooting in VR is that you don't want things too close to the cameras, because when you have that many cameras pointing out the way, there's blind zones. So it doesn't actually look that cool when the shark mouth comes in and eats your camera. We actually have some great still footage of the inside of the mouth of a shark, and I actually can send them to you later.
I think that would be really cool to show. Yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah, you see the tongue, and you see like all the different sets of teeth, and you can see like all the way down his throat. It's pretty cool, pretty gnarly stuff there. So I don't know if I answered your question, but it's pretty fun shoot. You set up sort of like a near field internet, like a localized internet. I bring my dad and my mom onto all my productions because, you need a lot of help when you do this. And I have him and his company set up communication system between the cameras. So what I needed a localized network where I could communicate with the helicopters, but I could also communicate with the stern of the boat and the dive teams going into the water and the submarines just before they go underwater. And the reason why I need to communicate with them is that I need to figure out if the cameras, are they all on? Because at that time we were all shooting on GoPros. It's the only sort of disposable camera we could get a hold of and have a large quantity of these cameras. So if one chamber in the underwater rig was water flood, it's not such a big deal losing a camera. Like you're losing a few $100s.
Yeah.
And you're losing a few $1,000s or tens of thousands of dollars.
But you'd also be losing that whole shot, wouldn't you, if you lost one of those cameras?
Yeah, and the problem is anyone who's shot on a GoPro is that it's really easy to not just not press record, but it's also easy to put it on still image mode where you just have one picture. And if you do that, then your 360 is ruined as well. So therefore, I had to constantly communicate with the cameras and like check that all the cameras were on, were they all on the same settings. If you want to get really nerdy, it's like, are they on the same picture profile? Do they have the same settings? Are the same camera settings, same frame rate? Is one taking a still picture? Is it actually recording? How much battery is left on the individual cameras? And also, a submarine needs a good 45 to 55 minutes before it can actually submerge into the water. So it sits there and it cooks in the sun, and all your cameras also cook in the sun, because they're in this glass ball. So what I had to do is I needed to bring, assemble all the cameras into this underwater rig, and I had to do it in front of the AC cooler. So I was shivering there in like plus 35 degrees out in the Pacific, and tightening the screws into each individual camera chamber, then putting it into a freezer bag, then deploying it with the divers and then onto the dive tender, get in front of the submarine, then wait until the submarine is actually gonna submerge, attach it to the arm, and then so you're cutting down as much time as possible. And if anybody shot on a GoPro as well, they would realize that the battery time is only 45 minutes. So you can't wait for 45 minutes before you submerge. So therefore, we needed to communicate with each individual camera via local network, so we could turn them all on individually, so we didn't lose the battery.
So I have to ask, how did you pull? I mean, how many years again for the viewers? How many years ago was this?
This was in 2015.
So about 5 years ago?
2015, yeah. Summer of 2015, probably around about May, I believe. Yeah.
So technology has definitely come a long way since then in the last 5 years. So how did you manage to pull something like that off?
Well, I mean, it's come along leaps and bounds. I don't understand people who like shoot down the technology and goes, "Oh, VR is dead. It's going nowhere. 3D is dead. 3D is going nowhere." And I'm just like, same thing, different name, same technology. Well, it's not the same technology, but it's the same basics.
Yeah, same basic principles.
Basic principles are exactly the same. It's just got a different name now. And as far as I'm concerned, VR is as much 3D as this virtual reality. And what is virtual reality?
So I'd like to ask the people that are viewing too, are you guys doing anything in VR right now? Are you guys checking out some of the VR stuff that's out there? Be interesting to hear your take on it, especially on the film front. There's a lot of really interesting short films that are being shot right now that are available in a multitude of different places. So it'd be really, really cool to hear your take on it as well.
So what I do is mostly live action filming. There's a difference between sort of the real virtual reality, which is game engine driven and created in a game engine and is created virtually. I work on the live action side, so it's anything that's shot with an actual video camera, and we do the lighting. We do the lighting there on set, so we don't light it in the game engine. And now you're actually seeing a merge of both technologies. Last year, I shot a feature movie called Stowaway, and I did a virtual cinematography for a number of the scenes there. And we actually worked in VR. The whole entire movie was built in virtual reality. And then the actors come on board later, replacing the virtual reality. So it actually just cuts down production time and makes the film production way more efficient.
Yeah, there's been a lot of people, especially recently, that have been working in a lot of different game engines and working on, you're starting to see a lot of technologies kind of evolve and come out of it, like motion capture and different ways of doing motion capture and motion capture suits to be able to grab data of people moving in those spaces to be able to be composited into the virtual environments. And you're starting to see a lot of kind of crossover between kind of the older techniques and doing things in this kind of newer way that people are experimenting with and compositing. And the game engines have come just a a million miles over the course of the last few years, which I've definitely spoken about with a number of different people throughout the course of the last few months. It's kind of been a pretty hot topic, as you can imagine, with everybody being confined to their homes.
Exactly. I find it so interesting that we can start doing sort of real-time films. I mean, both you and me, we don't take it for granted. We know that this kind of processing of these kind of movies used to take weeks, if not months, just to process the images. And it was a little bit like, waiting for a film being exposed at the lab, for those of us who actually know what that is.
So have you been doing anything have you done a lot of just digital work? Or has it been kind of more conventional and pre-rendered, or have you done anything? And I guess what I should ask really is, have you done anything in straight real time? Have you done any shots like in real time, captured it all in real time, processed it, and then continued moving on?
Yeah. So that was a movie that was, I don't know if I can mention the name of the movie. Because it was supposed to be out. It's this really cool movie about a journey in space. Let's say it's a sci-fi movie. And he did this actually with Unity, which Digital Monarch Media.
Okay. Yeah.
You would have seen their work in like Blade Runner 2049 or Ready Player One, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
And what you see there is the live action capture sort of thing, like the live capture in sort of the motion suit. And then, you can direct using the virtual headset. And I can film using a virtual camera looking into this virtual space. And it's really cool for everybody except for the actors. I think you got to be a really good actor to be able to act with nothing around you. So it's still difficult for the actors. But it made it easier for them to see the live rendering. Is sort of like having an instant online lab with you anywhere you go. So they can see if a character is much taller than them. They can go, okay, I need to adjust my eyesight and my gaze up slightly. But I mean, baby steps. We're only in the baby steps of this. This is really cool where we're going, and we're seeing that it is more cost effective, and we're starting to see really good movies come out. It's not like the early days of 3D.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I mean, you just struck a memory for me. I think it was about 3 years ago, give or take now. I was asked to do a proof of concept for Sony Game Studios out in California. And they wanted to create an environment for the actors because they were having the same issue and the same problem. They wanted to create an environment for the actors in the mocap studios to be able to have a better relation as to what they're acting, the scenes that they're acting in. So they asked if I could come in and projection map the floor of the mocap studio so that they could do a kind of an orthographic view of. Actually, I think that's the wrong view, but you know what I mean. So a top-down view of the floor and all the scenery being showed on the floor and where the stairs are and where all the different props are. And they also use physical props in the studios, but they're pretty bland. They're not very well detailed. It's kind of like a box is a box, and it's this white box, and they build stairs out of like these modular little pieces, and it's pretty wild how they map out the floors in the mocap studios. So it was interesting to go in there and actually like projection map floors and some of the props and things, so the actors would have a better understanding and orientation of the scene, so that it could create more of a mood for the motion capture actors, which was really interesting.
Well, I think this topic is really interesting, and I think a lot of people don't understand.
Topographic.
The top graphic, yes. The interesting with the field that we're moving into now is that to work with new technology and art, it's not so much AI anymore. Like, we want to understand it, and the actors aren't going to be out of work. Like, deepfake is good, but it's not acting performance good, at least not yet. And I don't know of any machines out there that can actually produce that level of belief to be emotionally involved with an actor who is not real. The saying, or like John McCarthy, he said that when something works, it's no longer AI. And I believe that's where we come in under when we make movies, because we want to understand AI. Like Sunspring. Did you see Sunspring?
I have not, no.
It was generated by an AI engine called Benjamin, and it's a really cool short. It's available on YouTube and people can see it. It's a sort of Thomas Middlesmith, the guy from Silicon Valley. He's the lead actor.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, cool.
And the script was written by this not game engine, but by this engine Benjamin, and it doesn't make any sense. But they are acting, and they've actually been given the performance cues or by this engine, by this AI, and none of it makes sense. But it's a hilarious short movie of where AI is now and potentially where it could go. And in a way, even though it makes no sense, it's very poetic. It's like these song lyrics without any meaning.
Yeah, kind of a pieced together song that really has no backstory or any reason for what it's about. That's
exactly, and it's strangely captivating, and you sit there just watching it for a good 10 minutes, and you're like, I have no idea what this is about, but this is actually like hitting me,
I think it really kind of just gets in, tries to pique our curiosity probably more than anything, keep you engaged because you have no idea where it's going.
And that's where virtual reality and AR and XR is right now when it comes to entertainment. It's an experiment, and we're sort of its baby steps, and it's really interesting where we are now and where we can eventually end up in the future. And that's why Queen got in contact with me, the rock band Queen.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a great story to tell, especially for the viewers, because I know that was another really tight timeline.
Oh my God, yeah.
Insane requirements. Sounds like you're the person to go to when all hell breaks loose and they're like, oh yeah, no, everybody else said no, but we know somebody. We know somebody to call.
I think again, I think I should maybe like talk as a psychologist as like being like addicted to gambling or something that's like bad for you. And it's a gamble, isn't it? It's the gamble, or maybe like a risiko like sport, or like skydiving. And I don't know, skydiving is kind of safe, but I wouldn't be jumping, like I wouldn't go bungee jumping. I find that like a big risiko sport. And this is kind of what I do as well, I think, in my work life. So Queen got in contact. Most specifically, Brian May, the guitarist. He's also an astrophysicist. And this happened by chance because I was, for my master thesis, studying at the National Film and Television School back in England, which is obviously back there.
So I have to ask, I'm going to pause you again. Where are you right now?
I'm in Norway right now. Yeah. I'm stuck here. I'm social distancing. I came here to visit my parents for 10 days back in February.
And never left.
And never left.
Well, I guess there could be worse places. You could be here in the United States.
Oh, it'd be terrible. No.
Actually, it's not that bad. I mean, it's interesting.
It's pretty amazing how I came here with absolutely nothing, and I've managed to set up a home office with the equipment I managed to get my hands on here in Norway. I mean, Norway is a great place, but the problem is delivery time of technology is can take weeks to months now. All of a sudden.
Again, I guess another real challenge with when it comes down to remote production.
Mm-hmm. But it works, which is fascinating. I find it very inspirational that I can work with a team all across the world, and we can achieve almost the same result. I mean, there is something with being in the same room as other creators and you create magic, but it actually does work being this far removed in different parts of the globe. So yes, Queen.
I was about to say, so let's get back to Queen.
So Brian May, Brian May is an astrophysicist, the guitarist. I don't know if you knew, but I accidentally got in touch with him because I was doing my master's on the history of 3D and stereography, and only then did I discover that there was like Victorian stereoscopic photography from the 1830s. So I wanted to study stuff from the 1830s up to the 1860s. Like, what did 3D look like before they had movies? 3D movies today tend to be very boring because we frame them exactly the same way as we would a feature movie. So this is a headshot. I'm cut off here, and there's something in the distant background, and that's how we frame. But how did they frame 3D photography when they only had dioramas to look at, or theatrical stage plays to look at, and oil paintings and fine paintings? 3D was actually mass-produced before even single photography was mass-produced. So it's this really cool hidden history where there's not really any books on it or anything. So a year later, I discovered that my boss, Brian May, was also the Queen guitarist, Brian May. And I was showing him the David Attenborough stuff. And he said, you know what, I love this virtual reality. Of course, he knows I know he's a fan of 3D. So he wanted to make something for his fans, because they just sort of started touring at that time with Adam Lambert and doing the world tours. And he said, you know, we see something happening. We see something new on the horizon. We're seeing virtual reality and 360 filmmaking. And we're seeing a change in the trends, just like we did when we saw music videos come. And Bohemian Rhapsody was the first music video ever. And we changed the industry. They love to, you know, do things first and be the first people to pioneer technology. And their stage show is cutting edge technology. So he said, I want to make a live VR music video from one of our concerts. I was like, oh, that's really cool. We can do it like we did with the David Attenborough stuff. He goes, and then him and Roger sort of chimed in, and they were like, yeah, we want to do that, but we want to make it in 360. We've never heard 360 audio, but we want 360 audio. I'm like, okay, directional sound. And Brian goes, and I want everything in 3D, not just the equator. I also want the top and the bottom to be 3D as well. And anybody who works in VR realizes that that's a pretty tall ask.
And yeah, no, it's just like, here, let's add this. Here, let's add some more. Here, let's add some more.
Yeah, and then the final one was, and we wanted to feel like you're flying around the arena in a spaceship while we play the concert.
So you got a big drone, and you loaded up the drone, and you flew it around the arena?
Which would be great, but we're in an arena with 20,000 people.
Yeah, that's not going to work.
Safety. Yeah, and also the Olympics were on at that time, so all the, you know, the football drones, the big, help me, what are they called? Those big sort of air balloon.
The blimps.
The blips.
The blimp cams.
Yes, they were all hired out to the Olympics, so I couldn't get a hold of any of them for testing, and also they went on tour 2 weeks from that conversation happening.
So you had a two week lead time to come up with a solution and shoot it.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
and
so
well,
what did you do?
so the first piece of vital information was that this was a concert tour, and it was to be a festival tour. I don't work in the music industry, so I didn't realize a festival tour. Festival tour means that you're outside, and there are up to 100,000 people at each concert. So the reason why that is an issue is that there is nothing called crowd management when you reach that number of people. And there's a concert every second night. So that means that the trucks are replicated, and that one truck stops in one city in one country, whilst the other truck with all the other stage equipment, because you have to build the stage from scratch. Each band has their own stage.
They leapfrog.
Correct. So you rig the night before, you're ready for the people to flood in, then you can't touch anything until right before the concert because another band is on before Queen, warming up for Queen, and then you have like 20 minutes and everybody needs to scurry and get everything ready and gets the lights ready and the cameras ready and get everything set up. And then as soon as the concert is done, then everything gets, ripped down as quickly as possible, shoved into the trucks, and then the trucks and the buses and the airplanes move on to the next city. So when I realized that, I was like, hey, that flying camera? We can't do it. We can't do it if this is a festival tour, because there's no way I can rig a flying camera while there's 100,000 people there. That's just impossible. Physically, the wires wouldn't be able to stretch that far. And yes, we have a healthy budget here, but it's, within reason. So we actually got Palo Sant Jordi is a festival, is an old Olympic stadium in Barcelona. It fits around 20,000 people there. It's sort of like a nice low profile arena. So you can see everybody. They're not stacked up against the walls. Those kind of arenas where people are hidden in the roof almost.
Yep. So, Jake, you have a lot of people probably that are also going to be watching, all from the live music industry and live entertainment industry. So we know this very well.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And working with local rigging crews as well. So local Barcelonian rigging crews. So trying to get sort of language going between English and Spanish or Spanish. Barcelonian there. And getting everything rigged up 24 hours before concert opening, getting the stage had to be reconfigured as well. I remember I got a stage drawing, which was just like a floor layout. And I was like, oh, well, that's not helpful. It doesn't have the height of anything. I don't know. Okay, how tall is a drum kit? How tall is the tallest tom on Roger's drum kit? I didn't know they were called toms before. No, actually, they're called cymbals. There's a floor tom. Anyways, you see, I don't know this kind of stuff. I don't know how tall this drum kit is. So if I'm supposed to fly over Roger's head, what is his height? So
you don't want to knock him out while he's playing solo or something.
How tall are the drum raisers? So, calling the carpenters and going, hey, how tall is the drum raiser? How tall is, and then calling the drum technicians, how tall are your drums? And there's no one's ever asked us that. It's like, can you please get
I'm surprised they didn't give you something in 3D. I'm surprised they didn't give you some renderings or something, some form of pre-visualization or something, so that you could analyze that before time.
Nobody had ever done this before, and Queen has never allowed a camera on stage ever in the history of their touring. So, never been done before. There was no reason to have that information available. So I had to sketch everything up in Google SketchUp, and so I could get an idea of what would work and what we had to sort of remove from the stage, what we would enter. How long could the catwalk be from A stage to B stage? They usually have a stage out in the arena as well.
Yeah.
If we shorten the catwalk, how many more tickets can we sell? If we have a technocrane 30 foot or 50 foot, what kind of camera movements can we make? How many ticket sales do we lose? You have to get, being a director, you have to do this stuff, the actual directing of the movie itself is like 2% of your work. So, also the Technocrane would be a good solution, but again, they were also all deployed for the Olympics. So what we ended up with was this 3-point.
It's like everything that you've been trying to book is gone. It's been taken for the Olympics.
Yep. So what we did manage to get was we got a 4-point wire rig. So you've seen these spider cams at football games, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But then again, the problem is that we were filming in VR and they have to move insanely fast to stabilize. So now we're getting into physics. So we actually got a rocket scientist on board and got him to help us out with how can we...
So wait a minute, you had a literal rocket science with you?
Mm-hmm. Rocket scientist, yeah. So how can we move this ball, because that's basically what it is. It actually is a pizza plate with cameras. How can we move this slowly in an arena? Because, you know, if they move at fast velocity to stabilize the image, then people are going to start vomiting if they're watching this because their head is practically inside this pizza plate. So when you hover it slowly with slow velocity, it starts to shake because of the vibrations in the wires. So we had to get a rocket scientist on board who used a combination of gears and like Doppler effect to stabilize the rig. And what we also did, we had trackers in the arena, and we used the same technology as they had in the Mir space station. And we had sort of open camera cells tracking lights, so that we knew exactly where in the arena this thing was moving, so that we wouldn't crash into Roger or Brian or Adam on stage. Oh, and that's actually the health and safety paper on that one. I was so shaky when I had to sign that one because it actually says potential of beheading the talent. I'm like,
that was written into the statement or into the agreement?
Health and safety papers.
That's quite fun. So what did you use for a camera rig on that one?
We built everything from scratch. I built it with Camera Revolution and also some of my father's work as well. We had a guy come from his company, Veloxit, come over to Britain to help us program everything, because the same thing as working underwater, filming wildlife and filming sharks. You can't access that camera once it's above 20,000 people. No one's going to get to that camera, so you have to control. And each camera needs to have its own website so that you can communicate with each of the cameras. A big problem we faced during the testing, so we run tests in like a big concert warehouse in a way, where the band performs and
where they would do their rehearsals.
Mm-hmm. And I hadn't taken into account the bass. The bass creates a low frequency of the bass creates a high frequency vibration in the camera. So,
another challenge to overcome.
So there again, we relied on the space community, who I knew from, back in the day when I was interested in STS-99, and I chatted to all these sort of space nerds and space scientists who are now engineers at, for instance, NASA or the European Space Agency. And because they already have a lot of practice with this kind of technology, because they've been using virtual reality to simulate spacewalks for ages for their astronauts. And
I've never even thought about the use of it inside of space and space programs, and that makes a lot of sense now thinking about it.
Because I've never been an astronaut spacewalking, but from what they've told me is that you need to be able to operate blind. That's why they operate, was a buoyancy lab called the Underwater Lab. They work underwater on the International Space Station. It's like
I remember seeing some of that, seeing some footage of them being underwater. So it simulates what it's like in space.
We also need to simulate on dry land, because you have to be able to operate blind, be able to walk on the outside of there and do your work with your eyes closed, basically. So I relied a lot on the space community, and thanks to Brian May as well, who had those contacts, because not only is he the guitarist of Queen, and he has the largest collection of Victorian stereoscopic photographies in the world. He also was a lead on a Horizon flyby of Pluto, taking 3D imagery of Pluto.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
More than meets the eye on that one, huh?
Yeah, and I've seen some of the pictures, and it's just amazing. Like it's a different world that you couldn't even imagine. It's got like these nitrogen spheres sticking up like mountains. It's magical, and to see that in 3D is just mind blowing. Absolutely mind blowing.
I can just imagine. Well, Yannicka, we're kind of coming up to our time, so I just wanted to thank you so much for coming on the show today. We like barely scratched the surface of what we're going to talk about, or what we were planning on talking about. And we're going to continue the conversation. For those of you watching, of course, we're going to keep running. If you want to check out more about Yannicka, please go and check out her website. It's basically her full name, written straight out. So yannickamikelson.com. And you should see some of her work. Absolutely stunning, beautiful, beautiful stuff. So Yannicka, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you. I mean, we didn't even talk about the 14 world records.
Well, you know what? That's the beautiful part about having another 15 minutes. We could dive right into that as well. And if you guys have any questions, of course, please pose the questions in the comments. We will be more than happy to answer anything that you might have for myself or Yannicka. And please come back again next week. We're going to dive a little bit more into the digital art scene and mixture of digital art and music. So I have Holly Danger coming on next week, who's an experiential artist. And we're going to be talking about digital art and music in its combination and creating experiential art and experiential environments. So as I say every week, thank you guys so much for coming, and stay ahead of the curve. So Yannicka, let's talk about the Guinness Book of World Records.
Yes.
And how that all came to be, because that is an interesting story, I think, in itself.
Well, again, it's one of these projects that I sort of stumbled into by mistake. I was asked, so let's explain the mission first. It's trying to beat a world record that has been standing since 1974. This year was the 50th anniversary of Apollo 11. Sorry, last year, July of 2019. So 50-year celebration of Apollo 11 landing on the moon, and also 500th anniversary of Magellan circumnavigating the planet. So the wish was to circumnavigate the planet over the North and South Pole. It has not been done since 1974. And it was done in a Boeing 747 extended range. So the aircraft for this mission was a Gulfstream 650 extended range as well. It's the only aircraft that, other than the 747, that can actually fly you across the South Pole. There's a reason for why air traffic doesn't go over there, and that's because of the cold, obviously, insanely cold.
Super cold. And I think it's also to do with navigation systems as well, isn't it?
There is no navigation when you get close to the poles.
Yeah.
There is no satellite coverage either. And that goes for both North Pole and South Pole, but even more risky at the South Pole, because you have no way of diverting to a different airfield. There is no second chance if something was to go wrong. And there is nobody to rescue you if something was to go wrong and you were actually in a situation where you could be rescued.
So let's rewind this a little bit. So why were you going to be circumnavigating the planet?
Well, so I came on board as a payload specialist, which is the NASA term for a filmmaker, someone who specializes in what the payload mainly is. And the main payload on this mission were cameras, because we live in a day and age where if it's not on social media, it never happened.
That's true. That's why we're streaming to social media right now, so that we can say that this did actually, in fact, happen.
You and me are real, or are we?
I don't know.
So, but the interesting thing is that for non-engineers is that live streaming is live streaming. You just do it with internet, right? And there's internet everywhere in the world, right?
Except for the South Pole.
Not right. And in airplanes, I mean, yes, you have used internet in an airplane, I'm sure, but it's sketchy at the best. So what I did do was I got in contact with Inmarsat and asked them to sponsor our flight. And he asked us, how many satellites do you need? And I was like, well, we're circumnavigating the planet, so all of them.
We just need all of your satellites. No big deal. Give them to us for 48 hours. We need them for 2 days.
And the cool thing was that they were super game. We ended up being small headquarters around the world who were awake for those 48 hours, helping us link up and down to satellites. Satellites are geosynchronous, which means I'm here in Norway, and say this is a globe and this is a satellite. So they rotate together at all times, right? But when we fly in and out of coverage. So even though a satellite is here, we don't have a satellite beamed on us at all times that can track the aeroplane. So we fly in and out of satellite coverage. So LOS is out of coverage, loss of signal, and an AOS is then you have signal. So live streaming via satellite has apparently never been done before, but I didn't know this until I started. And not only is it insanely expensive to hire.
And here we go again to the, hey, do you think this can be done? No, call somebody else. Hey, do you think this can be done? No, call somebody else. Hey, Yannicka, I got this great project for you.
I think I'm just
sounds great. I'm in.
A touch naive, but also when I get into a project, I get really I eat, breathe, sleep it. Like it's my being, it's my everything. So when I get into a project, I can't finish until, I can't breathe until I'm finished.
And absolute dedication and perseverance until it's done.
And it has to be a way, it has to be some way. And everybody understands that we're doing something groundbreaking that's never been done before. So, okay, we're shooting for the stars, but we're definitely going to land on the moon, right? And I think when you are engaged like that, it's easy to get the team on board as well. And we ended up being a team of hundreds of people around the world joining us. I heard horror stories of people like having to hand patch signals to satellites on the ground because it's never been done before. It's not normal to upload that amount of imagery from an aircraft traveling at almost the speed of sound. So we're at Mach 0.92 for those who are aviation nerds.
So you're at Mach 0.9, so you're just below the speed of sound.
Speed of sound is 1 Mach, yeah.
Yeah.
A Mach 1. So we're just below.
So just for you guys tuning in, just to kind of clarify, so Yannicka was payload specialist on a flight to break the Guinness Book of World Records in circumnavigating the globe in less than 48 hours?
It had to be less than the record was at 54 hours, and we actually took the record in 46 hours, 40 minutes and 22 seconds, and 12 milliseconds for his counting.
So less than 50 hours, and live streaming this from the plane going at just below Mach 1. And this was for one more orbit, right? For the celebration of the 50th anniversary of the Apollo mission.
Yes, Apollo 11. It's the first mission to land on the moon. Of course, Apollo 16 and Apollo 17. What am I talking about? Apollo 16 was 1972. Just stick another Apollo in there. So where are we? Okay, so
we're talking about satellites going in and out of coverage and flying at just under the speed of sound.
Yeah, and the reason why we have to connect to satellite is that internet is distributed through ground towers, on land, but you can't reach those ground towers from airplanes. Definitely can't reach those ground towers from the North Pole or South Pole. You can't even reach a satellite. So a satellite sits at the equator, and here's a world, and then sort of the North Pole is up here. So you're just sort of like at about 82 to 85 degrees north, your signal is next to nothing. That's like the end of the signal. And then you go into LOS, loss of signal over the North Pole, and also your compass starts to spin because everything is now south if you're at the North Pole. So you actually have no real idea where you are. The circle of uncertainty is pretty huge, and it's pretty cool because you see the compass spin and it doesn't know where you are. And then when you get into sort of the satellite coverage again, then you need to sort of correct your position and figure out exactly where in the world you are, literally.
So were you off air for a period of time?
We were off air going over the North Pole. We actually managed to connect live with Anderson Cooper on CNN from the North Pole, which has never been done before, so that was kind of cool. And we managed to do a video call. Yeah. South Pole, way more tricky. South Pole, I think we were LOS about 6 hours, and it got really tricky because it was minus 117 Fahrenheit there in the air. So we had to, because the aircraft is only certified to fly at about minus 100 or minus 105 is maximum. So they had to decrease altitude to get into warmer air. And we couldn't tell anybody that our aircraft was in severe danger and part of it was freezing.
Yeah.
And that actually didn't hit home until a week later when the C-130 disappeared and crashed on that exact route that we had just flown the week before.
It's wild, actually, because you'd never even really think about that. But the technical challenges that you had and you had to overcome for that are just absolutely remarkable.
It's thanks to a ground team as well, following us and tracking us, and where you have to jump from spot to spot from like government spots and commercial spots. So we were granted commercial spots and a few government spots as well. And the only thing I can really do at that time is sending sort of like almost helpless request signals to connect, and sort of relying on a ground crew who can think on their feet and try and estimate where in the world we are coming out.
But kind of like the comics Where's Waldo?
Mm-hmm. But the flat
But you guys were Where's Waldo as an airplane traveling at just about the speed of sound around the Earth.
But the cool thing was, like, we had 55 million viewers, and the flat Earth community was involved because they could not believe that a flight could fly over the North Pole and South Pole. It's just not physically possible in the flat Earth theory world.
That's true.
So they were coming up with all these reasons why we didn't fly over the South Pole. The main reason was because we were, out of signal, and why aren't we sending any signal? And I guess we sort of just flew around the bottom and up in the top again. There's a lot of theories of how we did that, but I hate to be like a bummer and say that we actually flew over the South Pole. And the flat earthers were trying to calculate how much fuel we had to make it across the South Pole, and the truth is we landed with less than 4% when we arrived in Punta Arenas of fuel, and I don't think we would have managed to sort of circumnavigate around the edge of the South Pole in the flat Earth map. So they had a bit of trouble trying to figure out how we had enough fuel to do that. But it was fun. I just didn't have the capability to communicate back to them, but it was so much fun reading their comments and watching their videos and overlaying the real flight map with their flat Earth flight map and pointing out where we were actually flying according to the flat Earth theory. I don't know. They really amuse me. I think it's fun to follow their logics because they don't make sense to me. And I kind of appreciate them being our biggest fans.
Hey, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's always fun to be involved in stuff like that. Well, Yannicka, I wanted to thank you again so much for being on board with me today. For those of you watching again, if you want to check out some more of Yannicka's work, please check out our website at yannickamickelsson.com. And Yannicka, thank you so much for being on the show today. I appreciate it so much for having you on board. The stories and everything that you've been speaking about have just been so much fun.
It's been an absolute pleasure. I hope to see you soon, and kudos on pronouncing my name correctly.
Hopefully one day soon.
Can you imagine giving that email address, or my email address, and also my website is basically impossible in English. It's easy in Norwegian, but English is tricky.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always fun having, I had another person on recently whose name originally is both Russian and Jewish. So trying to pronounce his name was also challenging. But I wanted to thank you guys all. Thank you all for viewing today. Thank you for following. It's been just a wonderful ride. I never thought that it was going to come to where it has come so far. So thank you for all supporting me and supporting the cause. And I'd like to just thank you all. Thanks, Scott. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Jake and John, for viewing. And please tune in again next week. We have Holly Danger on board talking about experiential design and content and music, which will be a fun episode to tune in for. And as I say every single week, stay ahead of the curve.
Great Barrier Reef as never before.
You are clear to vent, clear to vent.
Roger, venting now.
Enjoy a stunning 360-degree view of the reef as I guide you ever deeper through this extraordinary community of animals.
We chose the Kennedy Space Center as the location for our launch, where Apollo left from 50 years ago.
I didn't even know satellites could do this.
I figured you must have some engineer and some really good technical people even to make the Wi-Fi work.
One more orbit, Gulfstream G650ER is not going to slow down for anybody. Okay, so this guy is going to press him up.
Yannicka and Magdalena are probably the only two living females on the planet that have circumnavigated the poles.